Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Sioux Falls City Council meeting. This is Monday, November 14th, and we're certainly pleased to have everyone here tonight. We'll start off tonight's meeting by identifying the city councilors that are in attendance.
Council members Aguilar.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Entenmann.
Here.
Erpenbach. Here. Jamison. Karski.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
We do have 7 councilors here. We can conduct the city's business. As with every meeting, we will start our tonight's City Council meeting with an invocation. We're so pleased to have Pastor Dennis Thomas of the Free Methodist Common Ground Church here in Sioux Falls to lead that invocation. We'd ask you to please stand. After Pastor Dennis is done, we'll then proceed with our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Dennis.
I have to confess that I am not Pastor Dennis Thomas. My name is Pastor Pat McClanahan, and I am Dennis was a previous pastor of the Free Methodist Church here in town, and he is actually in our congregation, but I am the current pastor, so I apologize for not getting that information to you guys. Would you bow your heads with me? Father God, we are so grateful that we live in a country where we can gather together and express opinions and views in our government. We are also so thankful that we can gather together and we can pray and we can seek your presence in our midst. Father, I ask that you would bring people full of compassionate hearts and good ideas, and that you would pour out an extra measure of wisdom on the people that govern this city, that they would do the job that they have been elected to, and that they would do it seeking your wisdom, seeking your guidance, that the goodness of all the people that live in this city would be on their hearts and their minds as they conduct this business tonight. Lord, we call upon your name to come, that your spirit would fill this room tonight, and that the work that needs to be done would be completed. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our King and our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move to our consent agenda. City Council, any questions or comments or motions on the consent agenda?
Move to approve, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Now moving on to tonight's regular agenda. Is there a motion for tonight's regular agenda?
Move to approve, Erpenbach. Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Box made a motion to approve tonight's regular agenda, seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Any discussion or any motions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I'd like to
Councilor
move to make a motion to amend the main motion and the regular agenda by adding item 15 as read by the Assistant City Clerk.
Item 15 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations for snow removal operations.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Erpenbach made a motion to amend the main motion and regular agenda by adding an item 15, which was just read by the Assistant City Clerk. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. We do need 6 yeas to have this move forward. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has been added to tonight's agenda. Any other motions?
Mayor,
Councilor Anderson Jr.
I will make a motion to amend the main motion and the regular agenda by adding item 16 as read by the Assistant City Clerk.
Item 16 is a communication was received from the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Sioux Empire requesting permission to consume but not sell wine and malt beverages at the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Sioux Empire, 824 East 14th Street on Wednesday, November 16th from 7 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m.
Second by Karski.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to amend the regular agenda by adding item 16, which was just read by the Assistant City Clerk. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Would anybody like to make a,
We just need a vote on the main motion as amended.
any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson? Brown?
Yes.
Entman? Yes. Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. We can move on then with tonight's City Council meeting. This is a great opportunity for anybody to engage the City Council. If anybody would like to come forward, please do so. All we'd ask is that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, and just introduce yourself to the people of Sioux Falls with your name. Welcome.
My name is Ray Woody Woodson. I'm a Senior Vice President at Doherty & Company, LLC. My office is at 203 South Phillips Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I've had 38 years of public finance experience, 15 years with the City of Rapid City, starting with the original Civic Center in Rapid City in 1973, and 23 years with Doherty here in Sioux Falls. I was managing underwriter on the $36 million Convention Center in Washington Pavilion project in 1993, as well as primary financial advisor on the $70 million project for Lewis and Clark. I'm here tonight to recommend that the city not use a public, competitive method of sale for the sale of event center bonds, as proposed by the ordinance and attached exhibits, but rather a private, negotiated sale with city pre-selected underwriters. The only other public entity in South Dakota issuing bonds of this magnitude, over $100 million regularly, uses a financial advisor and a negotiated sale with 5 pre-selected underwriters. That's the South Dakota Housing Authority. This helps the Housing Authority avoid timing interest rate risk, allows for potential structural changes that investors may recommend as the bonds are being pre-sold, and by so doing, they make sure local investors have an opportunity to invest. Many of the largest issues in the country, and especially in time of volatile interest rates, where legally permissible, use the sale with pre-selected or predetermined underwriter to avoid the risk if done as proposed here. If on the date selected by the sale here, there is significant volatility in interest rates, the only option to the city are to accept the best bid received, or the worst case that they could do is reject and be forced to re-advertise and try a new date 2 weeks out and take interest rate risk for that delay. Because of current significant interest rate volatility, the city may have higher rates because the bidders may build in higher rates or fees as a hedge against volatility in the marketplace. In this case, it is proposed to potentially not award the bids until 3:30 Central Time on the date of the bid, and so successful bidders will likely have to assume all the risk, at least overnight, before reselling to final investors. If interest rates move by as little as 1 basis point, like from 4% to 4.01, the bidder could lose $200,000. For the same reason, bidders are not likely to take time to find retail or small institutional investors, but are going to sell to large institutions and bond funds so they can quickly limit their risk. All these will be pre-sold as being the same as any other AA2 rated sales tax or revenue bond, with no understanding of the differences in strengths of Sioux Falls and its sales tax compared to Minnesota, Florida, California entities, which can be done when investors, that information can be prevailed during the pre-sale process on a negotiated type issue. There is no real pre-sale or an opportunity for a retail-only order-taking period with a public sale method. In July of 2009, when the city did a public sale of $20,265,000 of second penny sales tax bonds it paid $15.39 per thousand, over $311,000 for underwriter and financial advisory fees. The financial advisory fee services were provided by Public Financial Management. Compared to Sioux Falls School District, on an $18,115,000 issue paid to Doherty and Company for underwriting and financial advice for a total fees of $86,000. The other was $311,000. And compared to the South Dakota Building Authority, on a $13,585,000 paid fees of $9.84 per thousand, or $133,000. For underwriter and financial advisory fees, the financial advisory fees were paid to Doherty and Company. On that same issue, if the city, which got a yield of 3.985, had obtained interest rates with adjusted yield similar to the South Dakota Building Authority of 3.896, it would have had $470,000 in total debt service. Or compared to the Sioux Falls School District, with their 3.7%, where it would have been $790,000 less. In order to minimize market rate risk in time of significant volatility, to allow for changes in structure during the pre-sale period as investors' need or desires are expressed, to have the opportunity to emphasize the strengths of the City of Sioux Falls and its sales tax compared to other cities across the nation, and to allow for local, statewide, and regional investors that have a stake in our project, we recommend that the city select underwriters to work under the review of the city's financial advisor on a private sale basis. There's good reason that only less than 25% of all municipal bonds are sold by way of a public or a competitive sale basis. The residents and taxpayers of Sioux Falls should not be subjected to these unnecessary risks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the council? Welcome.
Good evening. I'll get up here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anita Shear, and you've probably seen me here before. It's the first time I've spoken to you. I've lived in Sioux Falls for 37 years. I am with the League of Women Voters of Sioux Falls Observer Corps. This is going to be my last meeting that I'm observing, so I thought I should do a year in review. So I've attended 30-some meetings, sat on those chairs for many hours. They're kind of hard. The Observer Corps was formed because the League has an interest in open government, which includes access to public records and access to public meetings, and that's what I have been trying to observe. The council meetings are extremely accessible. It's been my favorite part, actually, has been the public input. The records are available. It's my new toy, my iPhone. I can access the city website very easily from this. During the meetings, when you're looking at whatever you're looking at, I can look at it too. And I really like that. That's a great improvement over just this year. I think you started doing that. So that was great. I have learned a great deal about what my government is doing, and I have a better understanding of how the system works. Democracy at this level, this is pretty much where it starts, and everybody really needs to pay attention to it. But as I said, my favorite part of the meetings is the public input section. And I found a wonderful quote from George Orwell that if liberty means anything, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And you have had plenty of that in this last year. My short list. A presentation on a resolution to build maglev trains and a tunnel under the Bering Strait. Reinstating the Glass-Steagall Act, which was a law in the United States from 1933 to 1999, and it was intended to regulate banks. Keeping parks safe for families, which you acted on immediately. Adjusting fines for snow removal and clearing the debris of private yards when citizens came and weren't too happy. Sometimes you adjusted, sometimes you didn't. I appreciated that they came, that they felt that this was a place for them to come and speak. That was a great thing, and you listened. You got to hear people tell you about water rates, secondhand and pawn shop ordinance, the recycling regulations, and of course the event center, and you're probably not done with that. But it's been a real interesting year. I don't know if this happens every year in the City Council, that you have this many things. You have some really hot button issues this year. So I had a good time. The City of Sioux Falls does very well, I think, in keeping citizens informed, and the citizens have the responsibility to stay informed themselves. This is one of the ways they can do it. Because democracy and open government happen with elected officials and with the citizens paying attention. We can just assume that you're doing what you said you were going to do, but you know very well that people are watching you, not just retired librarians from the League of Women Voters, but the city has really been paying attention this year. So I've enjoyed it, and I might come back just to nag you. I don't know if I'll be back as an observer, but it has been really enjoyable. I would recommend to everybody to come and do this. Watching it on TV is different from being in the room. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Anita. Great job. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to the council? Well, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Andy Traub. First, I want to thank whoever in the city is responsible for code enforcement. Saw a few city vehicles in my neighborhood taking pictures of properties, and suddenly they were clean within a few weeks. So I appreciate that enforcement and those who actually have to go out and do the dirty work on that. Secondly, I want to thank you, Sue, for your role in the election process. You had to dust off the old voting rules and get back in there, and I have no doubt that it was run with a lot of professionalism, and I just want to applaud the citizens for being very involved. We had a huge turnout, and I think that speaks to the fact that people care about our community. My mom and dad always volunteered at elections, and I thought it was just the most ridiculously boring thing on the planet. But God bless them for doing it, and I want to say thanks to those who volunteered as well on those days. I also wanted to remind folks, if you're watching, that I believe this week, Thursday, there's a snow removal or snow gates meeting of some sort, and I will be there to voice my support, even though it costs more. And I will remind the City Council that if I can check a box to get those things on my street again next year, I will check that box. I would rather give money to that than to the presidential election. So thank you for your work, and thank you for moving forward. And I do also want to share, I was riding on a plane home from a trip to Oklahoma City, and someone was talking about our city and that she worked with some conventions. And I mean this with all sincerity. I said, we're building a new one. Please come. Please come to our city and bring your event here. So just remember, when you're traveling, spread the word. So thanks for your work.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the council? Well, very good. Let's proceed with item number 8.
Item number 8 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 45 Floodplain Management Ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Jeffrey Schmidt, representing Planning and Building Services this evening. This is a minor change to the floodplain ordinance. The major changes came back in September of 2009, and we'll have major changes again after the levees have been improved in a couple of years. The minor change is we state in our ordinance what maps we're effectively using. FEMA has recently updated 9 of the 28 maps. The section is along Cliff Avenue and the Big Sioux River. Those are the 9 maps that are being updated, so it's not every map in the city of Sioux Falls, but we will state in this ordinance that effective November 16th of 2011 is the maps that we're going to be using. We had a press release that went out back in June, and we met with all the property owners in this area to inform them. So,
Jeff, thank you. This is a second reading. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Council, any questions or comments or motions?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Aguilar. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Herpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 9.
Item 9 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota by revising boundaries for voting precincts as set forth in Section 14-2 of Chapter 14, Elections.
Sue, welcome.
Yeah, Sue Roust, Interim City Clerk. On October 21st, you received a report from the Redistricting Commission, which has met this year following receipt of census data and had the task of revising our city council districts so that they were in balance. The ideal population was just over 30,000, and they needed to get within 5% deviation, and the final result was 4.99%. You have the map in front of you. It's also over there. There were fairly small changes needed, but this ordinance that is here for first reading tonight would implement the changes that would move 4 precincts into different districts. It does not change any precinct boundaries. It does not change where anybody votes, but it may change who they are voting for. Precinct 1-1 at Asbury United Methodist Church has been in the Southwest District and will move into the Central District. Precinct 413, which is Hawthorne School and has been in the Northwest District, will move into the Central District. And then 2 will move out of the, no, I apologize, Hawthorne was in the Northeast, I think, and is going into the Central. And we have 2 that have been in the Central and are going into the Northeast, and those are Precincts 5-5, which votes at Emmanuel Baptist Church, and 516, which is Terry Redlin. I'm sorry, I'm having to remember these things. So those 4 will be moving, and this is first reading. Second reading would be next week, and basically it changes the numbering of the precincts, and it changes their representative on the council.
Thank you, Sue. Council, any questions of Sue? Comments? Motions?
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Emmons made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Any comments at all? Yes, Councilor Urbanbach.
I just wanted to again thank the Districting Commission. It's a long process, and they made it very smooth, and I appreciate the help from city staff and for those volunteers that helped with that process. So I urge your support.
Could we have a roll call vote, please?
And as clarification, we're voting to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, November 21st. Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item number 10.
Item number 10 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds, authorizing the use of the proceeds thereof to pay the cost to design, construct, equip, and furnish a multi-purpose event center and associated site improvements at the current site of the Sioux Falls Convention Center and the cost of issuance thereof, and pledging a portion of the sales and use tax proceeds of the city to the payment of said sales tax revenue bonds, fixing the terms of such sales tax revenue bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of an amended and restated indenture of trust between the city and the First National Bank in Sioux Falls, and authorizing the sales, execution, and delivery of such sales tax revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $115 million, plus costs of issuance, capitalized interest, if any, and debt service reserve funds.
Tracy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tracy Turback with the Finance Department. The presentation tonight on the bond ordinance will be given by the members of the financing team who we have been working with for several months. Councilor Karski and Councilor Jameson assisted us in selecting bond counsel and the financial advisory firm earlier this year. So you were, Mr. Karski, are familiar with some of these folks. The bond attorneys are serving as co-counsel on this, and they will review the provisions in the bond ordinance, essentially telling you what this ordinance will do. And also with us tonight, in addition to our bond attorneys, is Mr. Myron Knutson from PFM. Myron is a managing director with the Public Financial Management and is the city's financial advisor. And we're going to give essentially the same presentation that we gave at 4 o'clock, not to beat you folks over the head with it, but to offer that to the public for those that may not have had the opportunity to see it at 4 o'clock. Before I ask Doug and Bruce to come up here, I did want to mention, I noticed when Doug introduced Bruce this afternoon, he mentioned a little bit about the background, and it dawned on me that you folks really don't know a lot about these people, other than Mr. Karski, perhaps. Doug did mention some of Bruce's experience in other projects that he's worked with, not the least of which was a major project at Soldier Field. Bruce is with the firm of Perkins Coie out of the city of Chicago. And I might also mention that Myron Knutson with PFM has 25 years of financial advisory experience, so he comes very well experienced. Some of his projects, or the projects that he's worked with PFM, include the Deck Center up in Duluth, which is a relatively new facility, fairly comparable to the event center that we will be building, as well as a larger project at Twin Stadium in Minneapolis. So they also are very well experienced. And of course, Doug Hayek, our bond counsel serving with Bruce, really requires little introduction, if any. He's done a lot of work for the city over the years, bond counsel work. And Doug and Bruce will be reviewing the bond ordinance and the provisions, as I said, and Myron will be reviewing some of the financial aspects of the bond sale, kind of the process that we will go through to sell the bonds, and can touch on, again, some of those financial aspects. So with that, I would ask Doug and Bruce to come forward and review the bond ordinance with you.
Thank you, Tracy. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Doug Hayek with Davenport, Evans, Hurwitz, and Smith in Sioux Falls. I think I want to start by telling you a little bit about what our role is as bond counsel. Essentially, we've been working with the City Finance Office and city officials, as well as PFM, the financial advisor, to structure a transaction that's advantageous to the city, taking into account state law, the limitations of the city ordinance and city charter, the contractual provisions that the city has with its outstanding bondholders, and through that try to arrive at a structure that works well for this. And at the closing, when this bond issue is closed, essentially what the bond purchaser is looking for is an opinion from us that, number one, the bonds are enforceable obligations of the city, and number two, that the interest on the bonds is exempt from federal income tax. In the ordinance that has been put in front of you, as is typical, there's a lengthy title and about 3 pages worth of recitals, which really state the history of the bond transactions that have occurred under the indenture of trust that was entered into by the city with First National Bank in Sioux Falls in 1988. Bert Olson from First National Bank in Sioux Falls is here this evening. Bert and his team at the bank provide a tremendous service to the city, do a terrific job as the corporate trustee for these bond issues. So up till now, there have been 16 times that this indenture has been amended and supplemented. And this year, with this issue, we're going to be making some changes to update that indenture. Bruce is going to be talking about that and why we did that. And he spent a tremendous amount of time in putting that in shape. So the ordinance, essentially, number one, authorizes the issuance of sales tax revenue bonds in the amount of up to $115 million plus the amount of money that needs to be placed into the debt service reserve fund and pay issuance costs and capitalize interest to the extent that there would be any, but we doubt that there would be any in this case, but it's possible. So the actual dollar amount of the bonds will be somewhat higher than $115 million, but the issuance is designed to produce a net of $115 million to cover the cost of the project that was just recently approved by the voters. The bonds would be secured by the second penny sales tax that we have in Sioux Falls, as are all of these other earlier issues that remain outstanding. All of the bondholders are on equal footing. These are what they call parity bonds. So everybody that has sales tax revenue bonds from the city of Sioux Falls stands in equal stead with everybody else who has sales tax revenue bonds of the city, regardless of when they were issued. And then in addition to that, the ordinance lays the outside parameters for the bond issue. It specifies a final maturity date of not later than November 15th, 2037, an interest rate of not to exceed 4.75% for bonds that are issued on a tax-exempt basis, and not greater than 6.5% for any taxable bonds. You'll hear more about that from Bruce as to why there is a possibility of some taxable bonds that we want to provide for. It wouldn't be a significant amount, but you'll hear from Bruce as to why we felt it was important to build that into the ordinance. The bonds also under the ordinance are to be paid for on a relatively substantially level debt service, not balloon payment type things. The early first couple of years, the debt service would be somewhat lower on these bonds to adjust for other bonds that are going to be paid off by 2014 and to help cover some other costs. But other than that, the debt service is substantially level. And the ordinance also provides that the bonds would be sold for a price not less than par. So that just simply means if you issue a $1,000 bond, actually $5,000 is the minimum denomination, but if, the principal amount of the bond, if it's $5,000, it will be sold for not less than $5,000. So that's those are the basic terms of the ordinance. And I'm going to be, and then one final thing that the ordinance does is approve the official notice of sale. And Bruce is going to be talking more about that. And before I turn this over to Bruce, I wanted to mention that I have worked with Bruce for over 20 years. Bruce has been very involved in many South Dakota bond financing, so he's very familiar with the state. He's serves as bond counsel for the South Dakota Building Authority, for South Dakota Conservancy District, which is the entity that produces the funds, which are then loaned to cities like Sioux Falls for SRF loans to fund sewer and water projects. And Bruce served as bond counsel on the tobacco bond issue a few years ago. So he brings a lot of knowledge of South Dakota and some special experience that he also brings with him. As Tracy mentioned, he has served on some significant projects that provide experience that's very relevant to what we're doing here. Served as bond counsel on the Soldier Field financing a few years ago, the refinancing of Comiskey Park baseball stadium in Chicago, McCormick Place, which I believe might be the largest convention facility in North America. So these types of facilities, as is the case with our event center, present unique tax issues that really must be dealt with. And so it does take the special expertise that his firm brings to this financing. And his colleague, Mark Oberdorf, also brings a special tax expertise, which is very helpful. Mark was involved in the Jacobs Field financing in Cleveland a number of years ago, among others since then. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Bruce.
Good evening, and thank you, Doug. I hope that wasn't, it sounded like I'm about ready to retire. I don't know. I think I have a few more years left, but thank you so much for your kind words. Doug and I, as he indicated, have worked together for a long time, sometimes across the table, sometimes on the same side. We've divided the work we're doing on behalf of the city. We'll both be giving the same legal opinion at the end of the transaction. And it's a pleasure to work with Doug again. I think what I'd like to do is quickly address two components that I've spent more of my time on. As Doug drafted the ordinance, I've been spending time on the amended and restated indenture. The city has a sales tax indenture that was first drafted in 1988. It's been supplemented, as Doug indicates, 16 times. It's about that thick when you put them back to back. And one of the things we're doing, in addition to bringing these bonds to market, is modernizing that indenture, synthesizing it, integrating it, so that it's a tool that you can use again and again in the future in a more efficient way. Because of that, you need to think of the indenture as a contract with your existing bondholders, however. So there's some things you can't change overnight. Some of the changes we're making in your indenture are going to spring in effect either as the old bonds fall off and get repaid, or if we're able to get 51% of a consent of 51% of the holders of any individual series, we can then spring some of the changes we're making into effect sooner, even before those bonds are retired. Now, what's that mean for the city of Sioux Falls? It's nice to say it's modernized, but it does a few other things for you that are very specific. One is that under your current trust indenture, you effectively have to fund your debt service for a calendar year in the November before the beginning of that year. And you have to deposit 100% of the sales tax before you can spend a dime of your, or a penny of your sales tax on any other cost. What we are doing with respect to this issue of $115 or more million of bonds is spreading those deposits over a 10-month period from January to October in equal pieces, and we're also providing for future bond issues to do that in a similar way on a parity, because they'll all share equally with the security of the sales tax. And we're also going to ask older or holders of existing bonds to consent to those amendments. Whether or not they consent to those amendments, beginning with this issue and in future issues, you have a more rational approach of allocating your sales taxes as they come in on a monthly basis. We're also making a provision so that future amendments to the indenture are less cumbersome than the ones we're putting in this indenture on a forward-going basis again. We're also providing for subordinate lien bonds in the event that you want to do some sort of a special floating rate issue that doesn't fit very well with your fixed rate issues. We can do that on a subordinate lien basis under your new indenture. And we're also providing that you can close off your lien on your third penny, which is currently pledged for some bonds. I think your 2010A bonds outstanding have that pledge. We're providing that we can close that off and separate it and use that as a separate tool for the city. Those are just some of the things we're doing in your indenture to modernize it, to make it more flexible. At the same time, we're working on this event center financing, and that's been one of my principal focuses as a document lawyer, as a finance lawyer, on that piece of the services that our two firms are providing as bond counsel. And I think are additional benefits to the city beyond just financing this important project. The other point that Doug mentioned that I'd like to just touch upon is the issue of some of the tax complications that come with a financing of a facility which has substantial potential for private use on the one hand and for revenues from private use on the other. When we did McCormick Place, Soldier Field, I still call it Comiskey Park, not Cellular Field, hard to say, we had to take into account similar sorts of considerations. Without getting too deeply into the weeds, the federal tax law is such that if you issue tax-exempt bonds for governmental purposes, but private users get the benefit of use and are able to derive revenue from that tax-exempt financed facility, you could lose your tax exemption on the bonds. A way around that problem is to issue a component of your financing as taxable bonds. We're considering it. We may not do it, but it's one of the things we're looking at now. We've had to do it in other similar transactions. What that does for you, if you issue taxable bonds to finance a component of your cost, it allows you to privatize the use of the facility in other ways that can maximize the revenues from the private users and therefore help subsidize your cost of operation and maintenance. It's a balancing act. If we have to issue taxable bonds, and again, we haven't made that decision, and we may not do it, although we've preserved that option in the draft ordinance we've presented to you. If we have to do that, you pay a little bit more on the interest up front. You have the flexibility for both operations and for deriving more revenue in the long run during the life of the bonds, and we are talking about bonds 22 years, maybe a little longer, whatever you decide on that score. So those are some of the things that I've been working on. There are important issues that are embedded in the ordinance and embedded in the exhibits that the ordinance would approve, essentially the amended and restated trust indenture. Where do we go from here? Doug, do you want to? Okay.
This will just be quick, but as you know, this is the first reading of the ordinance. The second reading is scheduled for next week. And upon passage of that, the ordinance is published and becomes effective on the 20th day after it's published. And so technically, you could issue the bonds anytime, legally, anytime after December, about the middle of December. That's likely not going to happen. More likely it'll come sometime in January. Myron will talk to you about that. So that is, I think that takes care of the next step, and I think we'll just have the representative from PFM take you the rest of the way. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Myron Knudsen with Public Financial Management, and I'm just here to give a brief overview of the bond sale process this evening. Just talk a little bit about a couple of things. One is the first item we'll be doing is putting together the official statement. The official statement, again, will include a lot of the financial information from the city, including audits and that kind of thing, along with a lot of information about the project itself. That'll be the information that actually goes out to the potential bidders on the bonds. While we're doing that, we'll also be getting the bond rating process started. In the past, the city has typically received just one bond rating from Moody's. They've been rated AA2 on their sales tax revenue bonds. There is a possibility we may look on this particular issue of getting two bond ratings, a second bond rating from Standard & Poor's. The reason for that is that on larger issues of this size, in today's market, it's common to have two ratings. A lot of bidders may not bid unless there are at least two ratings on the issue. So getting two ratings will help you get potentially more bidders which potentially helps you get lower interest rates. So that's the primary reason for the second bond rating. Just a little comment about the bond sizing again. As mentioned earlier, the project is going to be sized to net $115 million in proceeds for the construction fund. The actual bond issue size will be larger than that to accommodate the debt service reserve fund, which is roughly 1 year's principal and interest, which is about $9.5 million, and to cover the bond discount and cost of issuance. It's important to remember that the project is sized to net the $115 million. The debt service reserve fund is money that will be invested. The interest earnings off that will go or come back to the city to help cover your annual debt service payments. And when you get to the end of the bond issue, the debt service reserve fund will be used to make the last payment. So it's not an additional cost in that you're using it to pay back the bond proceeds, but it adds additional security up front, helps you get better rates. Just a little comment about the marketing of the bonds. We'll be working on that also during this timeline. The bonds will be issued as non-bank qualified because the issue size is over $10 million. A few of these bonds may be taxable bonds, as mentioned earlier. Just a couple of comments about the method of sale. As an independent financial advisor to the City of Sioux Falls, we do have a fiduciary duty to represent only your interest. And it is our recommendation that on this particular bond sale, because these are very high quality, high rated AA2 bonds, we do anticipate a number of bidders. The city always has the option on a competitive sale to reject the bids if for some reason the rates aren't favorable, and you can always come back in the market again. So you have plenty of flexibility and plenty of option there. But it is our recommendation that the city conduct a competitive sale of bonds. It makes the whole financing transaction transparent. It allows all the banks and brokers and underwriters to bid on the issue. And if any one particular bank or underwriter has the best deal out there, they can certainly bid on the bonds, and the city will benefit from that. So it does make for a very open, transparent financing transaction. The closing of the bond sale, the timeline is that looking at a bond sale probably the week of January 9th, and then the bond closing would be around January 23rd. So that's when the city then would actually receive the bond proceeds. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, thank you all for the presentations. We do appreciate it. This is a first reading. So, Council, any questions? Councilor Karski, you've been involved in this from the beginning.
Yes, I think my question's probably going to be for Director Turbach. Just curious, I'm new to this. I don't know how many aren't, but curious when in Section 4B we put a maximum interest rate of 4 3/4 and 6.5%. I'm just curious why those numbers, and are we tipping our hand to bidders what we're willing to accept? Can you explain that?
Those numbers did come in the form of a recommendation from our financial advisors, and essentially that sets the maximum under the ordinance that we would accept on the bid. I guess from my perspective, I don't see that as tipping our hand necessarily. I mean, nobody knows what anybody else is going to bid. But my understanding is, and the attorneys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is a requirement to set out the parameters and the terms, the maximum terms for interest rates, as well as the length of the bond as well. I believe that's a requirement to have that in the bond ordinance. So we had to pick a number, and if we go, if we set it at what the rates are today and they tick up a couple notches, then we've got to start the process all over again. So it's prudent, I think, to include a certain margin there for flexibility. As Myron just mentioned, we won't be marketing the bonds for a couple months yet, so I think we need to allow some margin there for markets to move a little bit.
Council, if there are no other questions, would anybody like to set a hearing and second reading for Monday, November 21st at 7 p.m. for item number 10?
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Edmonds made that motion, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there are no further questions or comments, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson? Brown?
Yes.
Entman? Yes. Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 6-0. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is a resolution declaring the necessity to construct sidewalk on both sides of North Cliff Avenue from East Benson Road to East 60th Street North and assessing the cost to each lot or tract of land benefiting thereby.
Good evening. Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division of Public Works. One of the important aspects that we'll undertake next year is the reconstruction of Cliff Avenue from 60th Street North to Benson Road. And one of the key components will be the installation of sidewalks on both sides of Cliff Avenue. Today, there's only one property in that project limit that does have sidewalk. The remaining 52 properties which do not are addressed in tonight's resolution of necessity. And this resolution is declaring the necessity to construct the sidewalks and then assess the cost to the property when the project is complete. The owners of the 52 properties were made aware of the sidewalk installation during project meetings and also received a letter dated October 14th, 2011, notifying them of tonight's hearing. The installation of new sidewalk during the reconstruction of existing arterial streets and assessing the properties has been completed on many past projects. For one example is the reconstruction of Cliff Avenue from Chambers Street up to Benson Road. Tonight's resolution is in accordance with state law and city ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chad, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this particular item tonight? Council, any questions of Chad? Any motions? Yes, Councilor Erpenbach.
This is an area that I hear comments on a regular basis, so I would move approval.
Thank you.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve item number 11, seconded by Councilor Anderson, Jr. Is there any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 12, please.
Item 12 is a resolution declaring the official results of the City of Sioux Falls special election held in the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota on Tuesday, the 8th day of November, 2011.
Sue Roust, Interim City Clerk. The resolution before you will make official the results of last Tuesday's election. You're already moving forward as a result of it, so we better make it official, I guess. Just a couple of comments in advance. This election, I am thrilled with the turnout and the public participation we had in it. We had over 40,000 voters, which is 25% more than the record high number of voters in any city election in the past. The turnout of little over 41% was the highest turnout since 1994, the first election to elect the mayor and the new council under the new form of government. I think that's exceptional, too. The one other thing I want to comment on is the wonderful help we had from our Public Works Department in this election. For the first time ever that I'm aware of, the city did its own delivery of all the supplies to the precincts. That is a massive job. And they did it basically in about 2.5 days and picked everything up in about, 2 days, I think? I want to thank and publicly recognize Galen Huber and all of his staff and the wonderful job they did with assisting with this election. You know, it's really a team effort. We also had IT staff that have helped. They were there on election night to post results to our website as they were coming in. And today they put the final results out there. And so in addition to commending the staff in the clerk's office and the tremendous job they did, there's other city departments that we really could not have managed without. So the resolution before you is to declare official the results of last Tuesday's election. There is a very minor change in the numbers you would have seen from last Tuesday night. There were 2 provisional ballots that were eligible to be counted, 1 yes and 1 no. So the numbers changed by 1. The final result is yes votes 23,284, or 58.08%. No votes 16,807 votes, 41.92%. This resolution would declare the results official and state that the proposition to build an event center received a majority of affirmative votes.
Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Council, any questions or comments? Councilor Entenmann.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Entenmann's made that motion to approve. It was seconded by Councilor Rolfing. Is there any discussion on this item? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 13.
Item 13 is a resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriations from the Engineering Department to the Event Center Department pursuant to Section 5.07D of the Sioux Falls City Charter.
Tracy?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The timing of the Event Center project and getting the engineering work completed as expeditiously as possible is very, very critical. This transfer of appropriations will allow for the soils investigation testing to be initiated as quickly as possible. This resolution transfers $50,000 in appropriations in the current budget from within the second penny sales tax fund from the engineering category in the budget to the event center project. So that will allow appropriations or provide appropriations that will allow the soils testing and some other administrative expenses to proceed yet this year. When the bonds are sold, that $50,000 or whatever portion of it is spent would be reimbursed to the fund then. So this is, and those costs would be part of the $115 million project. So we're not adding on, if anybody's concerned about that.
Councilor Bob.
I asked you this question last week, Tracy. I wanted to just say it publicly. Would you talk to me about why we have to make this transfer now? That the Event Center is sort of its own department for now, but that it may not be in the future. Can you talk about the thought process we're going to go through to make this a little easier in the future?
You are correct, and the reason this transfer is necessary is because on the city's budget, the Event Center is in a department by itself. It isn't under any one of the other city departments. And so under the charter, the mayor has the authority within a department to transfer funds, but it requires council approval to transfer funds or appropriations from one department to another. So in effect, that's what we're doing here tonight. Looking down the road, once the event center is completed and it begins operations, I think maybe is what you were alluding to. From my perspective, and although my opinion may change, I guess, in the next couple of years, but as we move through this process, it makes a lot of sense to me to begin, rather than to treat our arena and our convention center and an event center as 3 separate entities for budget purposes, for accounting purposes, and that, rather to treat them as a single functioning unit rather than separate. And I think if I were to have to make a decision today, that would be my decision, to combine them, streamline the budget process. They're certainly going to be managed as a single unit. I think that's appropriate in the long term to account for them and finance them that way.
Good, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience wanted to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve the resolution, Entenmann.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Entenmann's made a motion to approve item number 13, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 14.
Item 14 is a resolution amending the 2011-2015 capital program to increase funding for CIP number 000122 Event Center in 2011.
Tracy, sorry.
Mayor, the resolution before you now will amend the capital program by adding the construction of the event center project into the current plan. The $114,500,000 number in the resolution, along with the $500,000 that's in the plan for 2012, will get us to that $115 million number that's planned for the construction of the project. So this is something of a housekeeping measure, simply to amend the plan now that the voters have given us the green light to proceed with the project.
Council questions or comments?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve item 14, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 15.
Item 15 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations for snow removal operations.
Mark, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. First, thank you for adding this item to the council agenda tonight. I also have with me Galen Huber, the Street Fleet Operational Manager, and Dean Borkhardt, our Business Operations Manager. We do have our presentation that we showed you back during our budget hearing, if we need to refer back to that. But essentially, this proposed supplement is in line with what our projections were. We've allowed the process to go through so we could book our expenses through October and not only project out what history has told us expenses will be in November and December, but we've also met with the National Weather Service to get a good picture of what we could expect for weather here in the last 2 months. We've been extremely fortunate to have very mild November, and at least the short-term forecast shows that that will continue. There is 2 chances of rain here in the next 14 days, but temperatures do look favorable. We did start November with $2 million in authority to start our final 2 months, but history has showed us that we've spent as high as $3.7 million in the final 2 months, generating a gap of $1.7 million. So we would ask for your support in a supplement of $1.8 million to make sure we can maintain safe streets.
Councilor, yes, Councilor Brown.
Mark, can you tell us exactly where the money is coming from?
Yes, this is actually a supplemental appropriation, so it would come from the unreserved fund balance.
Very good.
One of the keys is that if we continue to have, if you support this supplement, but we continue to have favorable weather, it will simply be returned to the unreserved fund balance.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Karski.
Just curious, have we written into this ordinance that the money would be returned to the unreserved fund?
That's essentially how it would always go. If we do not expend, and if it's a general fund department, whether it's public works or finance or police, fire, if they're general fund departments and they do not use their budget for expenditures, it does go back into the unreserved fund balance. Okay.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson has made a motion to set a hearing and second reading for Monday, November 21st at 7 p.m. for this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 16.
Item 16 is a communication is received from the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Sioux Empire requesting permission to consume but not sell wine and malt beverages at the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Sioux Empire, 824 East 14th Street on Wednesday, November 16th from 7 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m.
Mayor, I'll need to excuse myself on this.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson, Jr. Is there anyone who wanted to explain this item, or did you talk about it in leadership? Councilor Karski, maybe you could help.
Yes, I had received a call last week from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Sioux Falls, and the only reason that this is on here this way instead of under the consent agenda is just they were unaware of the procedures and the necessity to get it to us by a certain date. So typically this would have fallen under the consent agenda, so I just move that we approve it.
Councilor Karski, you are making a motion to approve it? Yes. Very good, thank you. Is there a second?
I would second Erpenbach.
Seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Councilor Erpenbach, do you have a question?
Yeah, I
Please.
do, Mr. Mayor. Normally, when these do go through, Lori Hogstead from the City Attorney's Office walks through them, makes sure they're okay, and so I guess I would ask, since she's not here, would
Attorney Fifley, can you speak to this, or has it?
I cannot, Counselor. I don't want to make an assumption that it's one way or the other. Lori usually pours through these, and if there was an issue, she would have alerted us. So I haven't heard anything from her.
Councilor Karski, did someone from the Boys and Girls Club contacted you? Ma'am, would you mind just giving us maybe a little bit of input here? And just introduce yourself to the people, please.
Hi, I'm Jada England, and I'm the Community Relations Director. And like they said, I didn't know the procedure. So when I called Lori to ask her about it, she just had instructed me to send Sue an email, and I actually came down to the Sue, the interim city clerk, and just kind of, they said I could go this route and just try and see. So I talked to the council members to see if it was a process that I could do.
Councilor Mock?
So have the forms been filled out and all the processes done the way that, I'm just concerned that without Lori, without an attorney telling us this is an okay thing, I'm
For
nervous.
this permit, it's just the letter. You just submit the letter. It's on the website, the process. I didn't bring it with me.
Ma'am, Ms. England, did you talk with Lori Hogstead about the particulars of this event?
I did.
And she didn't raise any concerns with you?
No.
I'm okay with it then.
It's consumption. Okay. You're just consuming. You're not going to sell it.
Absolutely, and I probably won't consume it. But
that's right.
Yeah. Not me personally. I'll be working, but yes.
Council,
I have personal experience having applied for one of these years ago for my father's birthday party, and I just did a letter for that too. So based on personal experience, it should be plenty.
I understand that. If I might, it's just the process. That's all I'm concerned about. So as long as... Yeah, I know you're surprised at that, Councilor Rolfing, that I'm concerned about the process.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson? Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes. That is passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Council, is there any other work that you wanted to perform tonight? Very good. Motion to adjourn, please.
So move, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
There's been a motion to adjourn, seconded as well. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entman? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes. That is passed 7-0. Thank you so much, Council, and thank you, City of Sioux Falls. This meeting is adjourned. Make it a great, great night.